We're going to talk today about two of the most charismatic people, actually the two most charismatic people that I've met in my lifetime and my friendships with them. And I'm going to call it A Tale of Two City People. Hello again, everyone. I'm Eli's dad with Project Eli, where we educate, we lead, and we inspire. And Eli and everybody else out there today, I want to talk to you about two of the most charismatic people that I've met, my friendship with them, and what's incredibly unbelievable in my mind is they are so polar opposite of each other that it boggles my mind. In fact, one of them is alive and one of them is not alive. So let's talk first about my buddy John O'Connor, who died many, many years ago. And John was somebody that I met in college. As a sophomore, he was an incoming freshman. We were both basketball players, and both of us had permanent seats on the end of the bench. I, because I couldn't shoot to save my life, and he, because if there were two ways to do something, one be the fancy behind the back, through the legs, over the scoreboard, bounce, swish, he would choose that way rather than just passing it and making an easy layup. John was unbelievably unreliable. If you made a date with John, if you said, all right, I'll meet you at 10 o'clock, if you showed up at 10 o'clock, it was more like a miracle of time. So what was it that drew me to him? John was the funniest person I knew, very charismatic, would just draw people to him, and wherever he was, that's where it was happening. He was the type of guy that went through college and party. Not a dumb guy, okay? I mean, I went to a good school, and John was there too. John had some brains, but he was the type of guy that always waited until the last minute to do anything. You know those people that pull the all-nighters when they have a paper to write? That was John. That was the way he was. But he and I just went through so many funny episodes, and John, later on, I'm not the only one that found him charismatic. And that was, I didn't get to spend as much time with John. Like I said, he passed away at a relatively young age, as I would have liked to have spent with him. He went on to become head of the anti-toxin campaign, was on Nightline, which was a late night news show with Ted Koppel several times, was on the cover of the New York Times, wrote a couple of books, but the guy had absolutely no discipline virtually about anything. How he sat down to write a book, I have absolutely no idea, but he did. And just a hilarious person. And he and I went to California together for the first time. We'd never been there. We went to California together during the summer for a couple of weeks. A buddy of ours had a relative that had a house that was available. He invited John and myself to go and enjoy the couple of weeks out in California with him. We had the time of our lives. We went through a lot of, let's just say in college, some rites of passage together, and I'll let you figure out what that means. And John was always coming up with things. When I had my first serious girlfriend in college, actually the major love of my life, John would always refer to her as the wife. Okay, so what are you and the wife doing today? All right, I mean, just so many different aspects of John's personality were out there. He would say things like, a very political guy. He would protest with at grocery stores for with Cesar Chavez, that type of thing. He knew political people. He knew Jesse Jackson. He appeared on a show with Jesse Jackson. There was a story he told me about Jesse Jackson was being interviewed by a whole bunch of reporters, and John happened to be walking by, and Jesse Jackson got up and went, "John!" All right? Got rid of he had that type of charisma. Very undisciplined, very charismatic. One of the things he would say things like, "The solution to pollution is revolution." That was John. All right? That's one charismatic friend of mine. The other person that is the most charismatic person I know is a gentleman that I grew up with, went to high school with. We started off as athletic rivals. We went to different grammar schools that competed against each other and became friends, and so on. And he exhibited leadership and charismatic qualities from a very early age, and to this day still maintains that. He's alive and kicking and well and doing very, very well. And the reason why I'm talking on this subject today is because he and I had a conversation the other day that I wanted to share with you. But then I started thinking about it, and I said, what's the difference? I mean, he's the most charismatic person I know right now. What's the difference between Cappy, that's his name, Cappy, and John O'Connor? What's the difference? And because they're so polar opposite. Cappy is unbelievably fastidious. All right? Everything in its place. All the time. In school, he was the hardest worker. He took unbelievably great notes. When you looked at his handwriting, it looked like it was typewritten. Everything perfectly in place. And he and I also went through the rites of passage of high school, of girls and so on, and sports. I mean, I'm a big sports nut. He's a bigger sports nut than I am. Our lives sort of took on parallel directions in a different ways, though. Incredible, okay? Cappy's a smart guy, but he's not Einstein. But he's a smart guy. He outworks everybody. When I think of the word grit, he is the person that comes to mind. He has such a great stick-to-itiveness that's unbelievable. And that's how he gets everything done, methodically. All right? We are members, he and I are members of two tribes together. One is the tribe of your best buddies from high school, and the other is the tribe that I have a group of people. I belong to an organization where we go, you've heard me talk about it before, where I go up to Maine for Old Timers Week. All the people of this organization, not all of them, but 100 or so go up there for a week every year, and it's like the absolute best time. We're at a boys camp. We have all the facilities, and we have the kids waiting on us and so on, and it's just the absolute greatest week. And everybody that belongs to this organization looks forward to that week every single year. The fact that we didn't have one last year because of the pandemic was killer. And people took to Facebook and just started sending pictures and comments, and the group has grown stronger over this time frame. And we're all keeping our fingers crossed that this year will be different and we'll be able to get together once again. But the thing about Cappy is he's so different than me. I mean, once again, he's fastidious, and I don't know, whatever the opposite of fastidious is. And whenever we get together, we pick up conversations like it's yesterday. We give each other the benefit of the doubt. When something goes on, we assume that he or I had a good reason for doing what it was that we did, even though we can't figure out, what was he thinking, what was he doing. We talk about serious stuff, and this is one of the things that I really treasure about talking with Cappy, is that we talk about some serious topics of the day, always sprinkled with humor. All right, always putting in little humor. Cappy is very, very funny. Always sprinkled with humor, but we can talk about serious stuff, and like I said, our backgrounds are so different. I mean, he was from a more well-to-do family than I, and yet we still were able to connect. You know, we had the athletic thing in common. We had, I'd like to think that people have told me, I'm being very humble here, that I have a good sense of humor. You know, it's just an incredible relationship that we've had over the years, and I kind of think of it as similar to John Adams and Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson and John Adams were bitter political rivals back in the day, and later on in life, at the end of their lives, they started corresponding to each other. They had a lot in common. They were both there for the Revolution. They were both big participants in the Revolution, but they were on different sides. One was a Federalist, one was a Democratic Republican, and they, you know, completely different viewpoints, yet they went through the same things, and at the end of their lives, they would correspond back and forth, talk about the subjects of the day. And you know, if you don't know this, historically speaking, they both died on the same day, which was July 4th, 50 years from the signing of the Declaration of Independence. Talk about coincidence. What things do Cappy and I have in common? We both are interested in leaving something out there, making a contribution. Cappy is somebody that writes. He writes 2 or 3 or 4 articles every single week that I read religiously. You know what I do, my videos. Cappy watches my videos. He comments on my videos. I comment on his writing. You know, and we're writing about different stuff. I mean, Cappy, he'll write about a political issue of the day, but mostly he's writing about sports. That's what he's interested in. And in addition to being interested in the political issues of the day. But sports is, you know, he's a big sports guy, a big Boston guy. And another thing is that we both became salespeople. And one of the things I remember him saying to me when I was in sort of my heyday as a salesperson, we were talking about sales one day up in Maine, and he said, you know, frankly, I think I'm the best salesperson around. And I was thinking to myself, how can you be the best salesperson around? I'm the best salesperson around. I had the same thought. And the thing is, what was unique about it was he was selling to different people. He was selling to companies and corporations. His family had a very successful business that he took part in, and he would be selling to, you know, big corporations and so on. And I was selling in-home to mom and pop, you know, in their homes, everyday people. And so it was, you know, we're both in sales, but it was sort of different type of selling that you're doing. So we had all of those different things. And whenever I talk with Cappy, which is not, one of the things is unique is we'll talk maybe once or twice a month. You know, he, you know, lets me alone, I let him alone, we live our lives, and we respect each other's time. And one of the things that's important for me is Cappy is, without question, the, I don't know, leader of all of our friends that go to this camp. All right, they all correspond with Cappy. All right, they don't all correspond with me. He's more of a leader in that regard than I. We both think of ourselves as leaders, and we both have the same political standing. So in these recent things that came up, you know, in terms of the pandemic, in terms of what went on presidentially, you know, the activities of the president and so on, we both thought exactly the same things, and it's just sort of getting a unique slant on the same issues. But the point is, I really think of us as John Adams and Thomas Jefferson. He being John Adams, you know, the more staid individual, and me being Thomas Jefferson, you know, the more, for lack of a better word, casual individual. So the point I'm getting at, Eli and everybody else, is when you have a friend that has that kind of charisma, one of the things that you want to do is study that person. One of the things that I did very early on was think to myself, now I'm looking at this guy and all the people are just drawn to him. He's got a charisma. What is it about him that makes him that way? Why can't I be more like that? All right, that's what I was saying. Why can't I draw people to me? As you know, I have an ability to draw people to me, but not like Cappy. You know, he's exponentially up there. And he's had his ups and downs, as everybody has. You know, he's had some health issues, had some marital issues. You know, I can certainly identify with that, but they're completely different. But the point is, we're there for each other. Now, when I was in my time of trouble, he came through for me in a big way, and he knows that I would come through for him if and when the time came. The point is, when you have a close friend like that, and you have a friend with that kind of charisma, take a look around and see what it is that separates them from the other people. And let me tell you the secret about Cappy that separates him from other people. Don't tell anybody this, but this is also one of the things that makes a great salesperson a great salesperson. It's the ability to see what motivates other people. And he's able to dial into that and talk with that person, and you're thinking, I'm the only guy in the room. He's talking to me about this stuff. He's interested in what I'm interested in. That's how he does it. He has that ability to identify what motivates other people. And as a salesperson, that's a critical skill to have, but it also works on the personal side of the balance sheet as well. So, point for today: pride your friends. Keep up with them. And if there's somebody that's really, really special, like a John O'Connor or like a Cappy, study them a little bit. Observe what they do. See how they do it. You don't have to be a copycat. I mean, I don't copycat Cappy, even though I would like to be more charismatic than I currently am. I don't copycat him. I'm me. I'm my authentic self. I'm my casual, sloppy, authentic self. And he is the fastidious, studious, flowery language, which I love because he has these great expressions. What draws people to him. So that's my piece for today about friendship and about the fact that you can have a charismatic person that is unbelievably responsible and a charismatic person that is unbelievably not so responsible. And because we're never going to end a meeting on a philosophical note, next time we get together, I'm going to talk about our conversation, which is what inspired me to make this video. And we're going to talk about the wisdom of the ages. So let's get out there and charge! I'm Eli's dad.